Preparing to live stream. Yeah, it looks like it's going to work this time, Lisa.
Yes, it is. Last night, I had trouble getting into the Board of Selectmen's meeting. It kept stopping at the point where you were, John, giving the thing about executive session. In other words, you were doing the 91A and then bing, it would just start spinning and spinning and spinning. I tried it about 4 or 5 times and then just left.
I called to see if I could upgrade my internet, but they can't guarantee better service if I go to the next level.
Okay, I'm getting double wording here, so I've got to find how I pause it.
And then bing, it would just start spinning and spinning and spinning. I tried it about 4 or 5 times and then just left.
I know YouTube is like a minute behind us.
He's getting the YouTube feed.
Yeah.
Okay, now I think now we're all set. I've got YouTube running with Lisa's help, and I think we're all on. I don't see Jackie. Is she going to join us?
I haven't heard anything.
Well, I think we need to begin, even if. Yeah, we're going to wait 2 minutes while Lisa puts it up on the website for the link that we use for YouTube. So we're almost ready. This technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't, it's frustrating.
Definitely.
Oh. Yeah, I don't see, I checked on participants and I don't see that I have anyone in the waiting room. Yeah, right now I've got Rec and Susan muted, and Bob, Beth, and I are all able to talk to one another.
Lucy was in here. Maybe did she get bumped out?
I don't know. We like I said, we had trouble here at the internet, which is why it went down the first time we had put it up. I'm going to say goodbye to Lisa now. Thank you for the help. Okay, goodbye. Okay, so I think we're all ready to begin the meeting, Bob. I assume you're the chairman, or you're the emergency management director, and so why don't you begin?
We'll just do that then. I did see the agenda was set up, and I like that. I think one of the first things we need to do is look at public hearings and public meetings and establish the rules that the selectmen will need to put in place to allow the opening of the town hall for meetings. I know that James, the planner, had put in a recommendation for how they might hold the public hearing, and I thought it was a good recommendation. But again, we need to look at certain things like the selectmen need under, I believe it's 4111A, to establish the rules regarding the wearing of masks inside the building, the numbers of people that would be allowed in the hall, and let's see, there was one other, just that, you know, the appropriate distancing would have to be maintained.
The number 10 that's not valid anymore, right?
Number 10 is, in other words, it is infinite now. At this point, the 10 is gone, the 50 is gone. Mm-hmm. The problem is that you still have to maintain the distancing. And so not knowing offhand what the size of that hall is, it's conceivable that you would not be able to have all of the public in there. And if you have, and the one thing that is both emergency order 12 and emergency order 23 are still in effect and will probably be in effect until the end of the emergency. So that allows you, as long as you have alternative means, in other words, a way for the public to get in, you do not necessarily have to let the public into the meeting itself. I think what the planning board is concerned about is that they have a public hearing that's very different than a public meeting coming up, and need to have guidelines in terms of how that's done. I have no problem with opening up at the town hall, but I think before we get off this meeting, we need to decide how people are going to enter the building and egress the building, the number of people that be allowed, and how those who can't make the meeting will have access to it. One of the things that came up on this morning's legal call was a concern for people who have asthma or COPD and can't use a mask. How do they safely enter the building, and what provisions do we have for them?
I took a 6-foot rod into the room,
Excellent.
and it's going to be surprising how few chairs we can get in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you get 10 chairs, other than the table, the way it's configured, you're going to be that's probably going to be it. The double doors in summertime, I suppose we could open the double doors and have the public standing remotely outside. But frankly, they're going to have better access over Zoom than they're going to have at the building if there's 30 people standing 6 feet apart outside.
That would be true. And I think that's in the public hearing. One of the things would be, how do they have the ability to talk? And that's something we can work out with Linda and the planning board. But again, I think I see no reason not to open up the hall for meetings. Just we have to establish some rules. One of the things that Hal had talked about was not having the public restroom. And I think we've got 4 restrooms in that building. We assign one that's staff only, and then open up the others to the public.
Yeah, I think the 3 upstairs by the hall get open to the public, and the one downstairs stays employee only.
Right.
Cleaning of it's going to be an issue. I think we're going to have to add some cleaning staff after meetings to clean it the next morning, or a schedule somehow or other to have the room cleaned more often, probably at least 3 times a week. I don't know what the rest of you think.
Well, that was one of the things that I had posted to, at least to the board, and I think to you, John, was I don't know what the cleaning situation is, how often it's cleaned. Do we have a service doing it? And I think
we have a service that I think does it once a weekend.
Okay, so that might be something we need to reach out to them to see if, the other thing is, Mark let us know that they now have a fogging capability at the fire station. So there could be a way of sanitizing by using that after a meeting, but there has to be some provisions so that during the meeting, there are cleaning supplies there. One of the things I had suggested, and I don't know what we're going to call them, but whether it be a safety officer or a floor manager or someone who is going to be responsible for the number of people that do get into the hall, that they don't have access to the office spaces, and that cleaning is actually done. And if we're going to sell masks, be the person selling the masks.
So it seems to me that where we meet different nights of the week for different boards, we'd almost need a flexible schedule by whoever we hired to clean it. How portable is that fogging unit that the fire department has?
I don't know, because he just mentioned it last night. I have to go down and check it out.
It does
Okay.
the ambulance, so it must be somewhat portable.
Yeah.
Well, it may have a long hose. I mean, that's what I don't know. Or is it something you carry? And I've seen
My
some.
understanding it's something you carry, similar to what they're using at the garages in town for cleaning cars.
Yeah.
For the most part, though, the cleaning is, just those. It's not only going to be the bathrooms that are going to need to be cleaned, but I think the conference table is going to have at least sanitizing wipes there. So if a person coming into the meeting could grab a wipe and clean their individual areas. And that might be the other thing, is that people going to meetings are responsible for their own respective area.
Yeah, when I was talking with Ginger yesterday regarding the budget committee, which is the largest group that's going to want to sit around a table at 16, I think the only way, I mean, I think we're going to have to make the rule they either wear a mask or they stay 6 feet apart. That would cover someone who had COPD or asthma and weren't able to wear a mask. They could stay the distance, but you could get more people in if everybody was wearing a mask. I mean, does that make sense? Something like that for a rule?
Well, the problem is that you're one of the things, the 6 feet is just assuming that you're not going to get any airborne fomates coming out. So 6 feet in mask is preferable. In other words, even if you are 6 feet, you should be wearing a mask. The problem that's occurring now is that people are wearing the N95s with the valves on them, which are designed so that you don't continually maintain your own carbon dioxide in it. And so they are protecting the individual, but they are now not functional in terms of keeping fomates out of the room. So we have to be careful in terms of what masks are provided and how they're used. The standard N95 without the valve is fine if a person is concerned about wearing something with a higher quality. But right now you got to think about it as a handkerchief that you got around your neck so that you don't end up sneezing all over everything and breathing over stuff.
So it would seem to me that no matter what happens, we're going to be continuing Zoom meetings somewhat indefinitely. One of the items that I thought we might want to purchase, and this gets to the COVID money, and I know other towns have used it in telecommunication piece of the grant, is a good conference call, a phone that could be used for making sure that everybody could hear, so that the how we do it in one other town where I work is they use the conference phone to dial into the Zoom meeting, and then they use the camera to video in. And that way they get much better pickup around the table because there are 2 remote mics as well as the main phone. Something like, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, do we have any costs on that? Because I know the state ran into a tremendous expenditure as they started getting increased numbers of people on their conference calls. And so
$600, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it doesn't allow for 600 people on a conference call.
Yeah, yeah. And not that 600 people will be showing up at these meetings. Another thing along that line, I think that's an excellent idea, is a PA system, so that if you do have people who are showing up to the meeting and are outside, how can they hear what's going on? And a third thing being that even now, when you end up having a meeting and there are documents being shown, it's almost impossible for the public to see the documents. So if the planning board is going over plans, we should have some mechanism by which those plans can be shown to the people who are entering from outside remotely, because they have rights to see what's going on.
Does our planning board receive all of their plans electronically in an electronic format?
My understanding
some
is
towns require that.
Yeah, most of these are coming in as actual full platen paper plans.
Really big papers.
Big plans.
Well, I would think that the planning board could stipulate that the surveyors had to provide them with an electronic copy, and then on Zoom, instead of having everybody's faces, you could do a share screen and have the plan up so that people could see that plan.
Again, the other thing is the town does own a camera, because the last time we used it was, this is a portable camera. We use that for the deliberative session.
Is it one of those big ones with a
No, actually it's a It's close. The quality is like that, but it's small. And basically it's like one of the older movie cameras that we used to have, but
Okay.
it is hooked up to the internet and therefore provides visual. So
So it's digital.
that's right, combined with the audio visual cameras that are in the room, it's just one more piece that the planning board, which is going to be the most difficult here to provide for, would have what they needed. But again, you needed an operator. So now we're talking about some sort of staffing, whether it be volunteer or paid staffing, to cover the overseeing of the meeting. So, I'll call it a safety officer for now, somebody to provide the AV, and then somebody taking minutes, and also somebody making sure that the Zoom and YouTube is being taken care of.
Okay, so you're gonna need 4 staff, really.
It would
Could be
sound like that.
volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you need 1 for Zoom, 1 for minutes, 1 for computer, and 1 for camera. Now, we have a camera system in there. Is there any way to hook that into the internet? Does that happen? Does it go out live?
That is capable. That's a full AV situation. That was the one that we had used for broadcasting. And I think in the past, I'm trying to remember because I was moderator at the time we did the last deliberative session. Heather was able to contact the internet provider, and they were able to set up the hookup. So they just provide you with a code that goes in, and that's what comes out on the broadcast.
I assume it's like on 24, 5, or 6, one of those peg channels at the top of what Atlantic Broadband offers.
Whatever it was that we used to watch it on the television, that's the way. Yeah.
So the head end of the system comes into that room, then you're saying?
Yes, it does. That whole cabinet over there. And, we may want to call back the person who had been responsible for that in the past to see how that works, or just bring in the expert from Atlantic Broadband.
The fellow who used to do it was Tim Crimmins out of MetroCast.
Yes.
And I don't know if he's still there with broadband or what kind of staff turnover or change they've had, but that was the fellow who used to do it for.
Tim sounds like the guy that I've met with in the past, so that may still be the case.
Okay. So if we did, are meetings broadcast at all now in there, or are they just recorded for rebroadcast?
Right now, they're just recorded because most people have been using Zoom. So they're recorded on the YouTube channel and then rebroadcast from that document.
But before COVID, let's say January, were they recording meetings there?
Yes. So meetings were recorded and live broadcast.
And put on YouTube.
Yep.
Oh, you were using YouTube.
Yes.
You weren't using Atlantic Broadband for one of their peg channels.
Okay. No.
There was rebroadcast on that because I know one of my entertainments on Sunday night was watching the planning board and the.
Right, but those are very old. They hadn't been updated for a long time.
Okay, but prior to that, they were live streams, and as soon as I believe it was when 12 came into existence, that's when they stopped broadcasting. So I believe the March meeting was the last one. So the only reason why that isn't being done was because we had gone to a Zoom format.
But we chose to do the YouTube because not many people have the cable anymore.
Right. And the YouTube has worked out fairly well.
So is there a way of using the camera system that's in there for YouTube? You're saying there is?
I would assume there was. But I mean, that's something we'd have to look into and get somebody with a little bit more technical knowledge. I mean, it's possible. I mean, we have people you've got Co-Brown and the elementary school, Steve, and those individuals who are good technology people who might be able to give us some advice on that.
Good thought. So to film it with good sound is the most important. If you get good sound and a decent video, and then you need a way for them to communicate back, especially for public hearings. So
Right.
I think choosing the planning board as the board we need to satisfy. If we get that one working, then I think all the rest will be easier cases to
I
deal
agree.
with.
I agree.
So
and toward that end too, I think we need to have just a larger and sooner than later, having the selectmen establish the guidelines for the public to be in the building, because they have the ability to set any rules they want in terms of a facility and what will go on with that facility. So they could be the ones that require the mask and require the social, or I'm going to stop using social distancing and start just calling it physical distancing.
I like that term better. I agree.
Because it really implies that we're looking at that 6 feet.
But the board has also talked about not just talking about meetings, but opening up, having people come back to work in the town hall, working their hours, getting a plan to open to the public, because, so it's not just meetings, it's back to normal.
But what I'm
Isn't
thinking of is that each of these is unique. You've got the meetings, and for the most part, we could isolate that just to the large hall. And initially just having that front entranceway as being the egress and entrance, or as James had suggested, we use the door where the offices are as the entranceway, and then all egress going out, so that you had a one-way flow similar to the supermarkets. But either way, I think that's one issue. And then the next issue is, how do we open up the building for business? And then the final issue is, how do you bring back your workforce? Very similar.
Right. I'd like to get a recommendation to the board from the committee on what the reopening of the building for meetings would look like first. So what I'm hearing is mask, a safety officer, which could be a volunteer, for mask and wipes. And then we'll need to have a tech person to be able to electronically send out the meeting. And
try to increase the cleaning.
Yes, cleaning is the other, yes. That would be, something to do with cleaning after meetings, probably the next day or something. Make sure everything was cleaned. The bathrooms were cleaned.
Right.
They sprayed the hall, door fixtures and stuff, and they wiped down the table. Now, my understanding is they don't think on a hard surface like a table that this COVID would last that many days. So therefore, if the meetings are only occurring once a week, the situation will almost take care of itself, but obviously cleaning is still good to have done.
The current thought along that way is that the fomates per se are a limited problem. But I would suggest having, say, a container of wipes. So if somebody's coming to a meeting, they could clean off their area if they wished. But yeah, I think you're right. I know we have what we call, we use our porch as a warm zone. So even when we go shopping, we leave it in there for a day or two, with the understanding that any sort of potential area would dry out, and you need the moisture for the stuff to remain.
That must be good for the ice cream.
Yeah, well, we haven't bought ice cream in a while.
So couldn't we just ask the committees to wipe down again after their meeting as well? And
yeah,
then
I think that would
increase our
be
cleaning
good.
like maybe Sunday and Wednesday.
Sure. And then that way you could have your staff, the cleaning people responsible for the bathrooms, because I'm not sure whether you can ask a committee to go in and clean the bathrooms.
But I would even say that we should have wipes in the bathroom. That way, if you have to use the bathroom, you wipe down the bathroom because,
There is
I mean,
something to that too.
you know,
Yeah, I'd
On
say,
the,
yeah,
I mean, in
on
my
the-
purse, I carry Clorox wipes because I have my grandson. And
Right.
chances are when we go to the grocery store, we're gonna need the bathroom.
right.
but I would think the wipes you'd keep under the control of whoever's at the table. So people, as they go to the bathroom, would grab 2 or 3 wipes so you don't have the whole can disappear
Right.
some night, from the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree, that's the safety person. Whoever is handing out masks as they come in would also hand out wipes to anybody who wanted them for, whatever they were doing. And increase the cleaning to at least 1 more time per week. And we'll need to continue with the electronic. Is that pretty much the summary? Susan, are you doing the minutes or are you just listening? I didn't know if anyone was doing minutes here.
So Bob, where do we get these supplies?
I can do minutes as long
Oh.
as I have. Is this recorded somewhere?
No, don't worry about it then. I didn't
Okay.
know if you were taking notes. I'm glad to have you with us, and anytime you have an idea, feel free to speak up. The same for the rec director as well.
Yep.
I'll
Just-
unmute.
I have a lot of experience with the live stream, and the one that you guys used at deliberative was terrible.
Okay,
But we just couldn't hear anything. That I had it up in my car as loud as it could go because that was the best speakers I have.
yeah, I think what happened is they had tapped into it from the microphone. and
Right.
They hadn't bothered to change the volume on it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now we know. Good. All right.
So I'll do the minutes.
Okay.
So the
I said, I'll back you up. So in other words, if you send me a copy, I'll see if you missed anything.
I will do that. Okay, so for the reopening, we want to have someone for safety that does the board needs to develop a policy on masks unless valid health unless a valid health issue, e.g.
We probably
CO.
should not encourage the masks that have the valves.
That's right. In other words, your major reason for the mask is to protect everybody else.
Right.
Rather
Yes.
than trying to protect the individual.
Okay, so the board needs to do that. The meeting would need to have a safety person doing mask and wipes. We'd need to have, continue to have electronic meetings, even if the entire board is there for the public. And the enhanced cleaning.
Right.
Is that what we have so far?
Yep.
Yeah, the opening of the bathrooms as well. Yep.
Yes, the bathrooms.
I'm trying to look through Zoom meetings, good conference phone. And you were going to look into getting a good conference call set up, see what that would cost us.
Yep.
Because that's something that could be added. But I think, again, the rules that need to be made are that, and also that no one would have access to the offices of the building during meetings. That
Well, yeah,
The-
other than staff.
the main hall would be open to the public, but that would be all that would be open to the public.
Yeah. One thing on that conference phone, does somebody know if there is a phone line in that room?
I believe there's one
Yes.
phone.
There's
There
a
is.
phone on the staging area.
I'm gonna say there's a dozen phones on the stage area right now, but they're all waiting for installation.
Oh, well, there is one that was plugged in.
Okay, so there's one that works. Okay, good. So if you have a phone line in there, a good conference phone would help with the sound. The use of the bathrooms, cleaning.
Plus there's
um,
phones in the recreation area, so we could always tap into that if it turned out that we didn't have the one on the stage.
It shows remote for insurance purposes. That's the code out.
That'll get it on mute.
Charles. So that has something to do with his insurance.
Okay. Okay, so as we continue on, anything else on reopening the meeting room?
That seemed good. I think the only other thing would be just at some point in time, we could ask for the people using the meeting room just to provide plans ahead of time in terms of how they're going to handle entry and exit from the room and how they're setting up the room for their meeting. The reason I'm saying that is that plans for a public hearing are going to be different than the plans for a meeting. And we just want to make sure that it follows the guidelines. And by requiring them to use the universal guidelines, we've covered some of those issues as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would think mainly entering through the hallways and exiting through the double doors so that if there were a line, they could space out easily inside, but it doesn't matter. One way or the other, I think you want one-way entrance and one in and one out.
It also meant that if we were concerned about a meeting in inclement weather, we could always put up a couple of easy ups on that entryway into that building and then exit. They just exit as they leave. Particularly if you're going to have a planning board meeting where you've got a lot of people presenting, you want to have them with spacing, but also not standing out there in the rain with all of their paper maps and stuff.
Yeah, I would think the planning board is going to have the most problem because they could have a meeting where they got 30 people who want to speak.
Right.
And how are they going to line them up? I mean, they can't have them all inside the room initially. Are they going to take questions over the Zoom by people, raising their hand on Zoom and whoever's managing the Zoom then saying, okay, the next one on Zoom is, my name is Heather.
Yeah.
They need to have like a drive-in style. I don't know. A lot of people going to some of those meetings.
Yeah.
But that's where, again, in addition to the mask, they're going to have to set a limit on the number of people that can be in that room. They're recommending 50% capacity, but as John points out, 50% capacity is going to be far more people than that 6-foot spacing is going to allow for. So I might come up this afternoon and take a look at that, and we can come up with a number. When will the Board of Selectmen be meeting on this?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
23rd.
So sometime between now and then, when you're in the town hall, we can come up with a number for them.
I won't be in the town hall, but somebody will be. The auditors.
Lisa's there or somebody. We can go up and.
Somebody should be here. And I have a 6-foot plastic pipe in there that I'm using roughly to kind of demonstrate what 6 feet is. It really is eye-opening when you think of how few seats you can get at 6 foot. We thought about marking the floor. Anything else for the reopening of the meeting room?
That covers most of what my concerns were. Masks, cleaning, and off limits for the rest of the building.
Except for the bathroom.
Except for the bathroom, yep.
Where I can give you a 162 check.
And the ability for the non-participants to have access to documents and voice and video.
Yeah, that would be part of the staff plan, and
Right.
that would be for the non-participants access to documents. Which is, yeah.
And I was going to say, recognizing that because 12 and 23 are still in effect, a board could choose not to allow the public into that room during a meeting because the public does have access to it through another means.
Right, but it would have to be an interactive access. So what you'd have to do is to allow the Zoom. I was on a Zoom the other day with 50 people. I'm sure with emergency management, you've been on with several hundred. But
absolutely.
You have a screen with all these little faces.
But part of the thing is not so much, I mean, you're looking at, I'm thinking of people like the budget committee, the Board of Selectmen, where there is not, most of the meeting is not interactive. The
Right.
public hearing is going to be very different than a standard meeting like conservation or ZBA or something like that, in which the participants are going to be there. But the public, unless they are abutters or so forth, would not be speaking.
I would think the planning board, if they knew they had a controversial meeting, would reach out to Co-Brown to see if they could use Smith or the other, or the gym or something or other with a much larger capacity.
That would make some sense.
Okay.
Okay, I think we've covered that subject, have we?
Except the only difference there is that you would definitely be stuck with the Zoom and with the limited Wi-Fi connections that are allowed on the Zoom. They may not have the ability for the outside public. That's one of the things we ran into with the meeting that we had for the deliberative session, was just the
That's what-
capacity
Yeah.
of the system to function properly.
Yeah, that's why if you can get a phone line in,
Yep.
the phone line is often the best for a lot of people if they got poor, but anyway, that's, yeah, that would perhaps be an issue, but if they have a big meeting, they may have to try to resolve it that way.
Now, with this roughly offhand, where you're talking 600 per meeting or 600 per, like an annual fee to have that conference call?
You buy the
$600.
phone for $600 and then you can do your own conferencing.
Okay, there's some wisdom in that.
I mean, I know the price of the one they bought in Tamworth where I'm also working right now. I don't know how many can conference in on that. It's mainly used to allow people to, anyone on Zoom who wants to talk, no matter how they're coming into the meeting, they come over the phone. Even if they're using computer audio, they come over the phone line and the audio is going out over the phone line. I'm going up there tomorrow. I'll see if I can get the name and company.
That'd be terrific. So does that do it for the town hall? As far as Beth and the selectmen are concerned, do you guys have do you have an idea of what it is that we're looking for?
Well, I guess we have to find all these supplies.
Right.
That could be a challenge right there.
Well, cleaning supplies are becoming more easy to come by. And you can get relatively creative in how you're doing that in terms of what cleaning supplies would be needed and what, how to utilize them. Masks are now easily accessible through the state liquor stores. So, I mean, we if we can't get them normally, I know that Winnie was able to pick up a package of masks the other day at the drugstore.
Yeah.
So they're now available there.
I know they have them at like Sam's Club, and I saw some the other day at Home Depot. So
So in other words, it's a case of where
Yeah.
we'd have some and the costs on that.
Yeah.
And if it becomes a problem, we can get them through the state EOC if possible. But I think we need to try to find sources, and when we can't find resources, I'll be able to try to get them for you.
okay. So another concern, I know some of the staff are concerned about attending meetings. So we're saying that we need to have at least 4 staff people, or 3 if we had a safety volunteer.
Well, actually, the Zoom person doesn't have to be in the room.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah, the one who takes the minutes doesn't even have to be in the room. Like I'm taking minutes here off of
Yep.
the Zoom meeting. So the one who has to be there is the safety person And if you're running a camera, they have to be there, but I would think those would be volunteers associated with the board rather than
Okay,
town hall staff.
okay. Well, that's one thing checked off the list.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll be back dealing with this some more, but
I'm
at least
sure.
that's a start. And as I said, because the selectmen have responsibility and can set rules for all facilities, town facilities, those rules need to be in place. And I think in one of the things John and I had been communicating back and forth with on emails is signage, so that people know that masks are required, that cleaning, that this bathroom is open and so forth. Yeah,
So you said facilities. So are they using the rec facility, the rec hall? I don't know.
in other words, that is at any facilities, and that's another thing we can do at another period of time, is you need to look at what's going on at your dump. Oh, that just reminded me.
But the rec hall has meetings there as well.
Yes, you should have rules for that as well.
Right.
Because
Because
this again this is a Primex concern because of the liabilities, that you need to have your rules in place.
right. I mean, I have no idea if people are using the community center right now at all.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Or if it who cleans it? I have no idea.
Right.
yeah, there should be fairly consistent rules across all the buildings. And the signage, one thing Primex wants is for all the signage to be similar.
Right.
So how to wash your hands should be the same in every bathroom.
So that brings me to something else. It's not necessarily so for the hall, and I'm not sure whether we're finished with that. But the other thing has to do with your office buildings and your workforce and the need to maintain records, health records. And these aren't records that would be subject to HIPAA regulations, because you're just asking, you do this series of questions. And I think I sent some in, John sent something from Tamworth. I think we've all seen these. The library has one in place, and we've got to make sure that that's being done. And it's not just being done at the town hall, but it also needs to be done at the Public Works facility. There should be, all those people should be doing the same sort of scanning, so to speak. But I
Yeah,
think I'm jumping ahead of the game.
I was gonna say, I asked Mark to order under the COVID a couple of those thermometers that you can do. I hadn't thought about the transfer station and highway, but probably they should have them too down there. I think that is one of the things. It says, have you taken your temperature, or you take their temperature right
Yes,
there?
yes.
And how many people at home are going to want to put a thermometer in their mouth and stand there after they brush their teeth and wait, until the thing beeps and take it out and look at it?
They have quick ones now. It goes like that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, that's what I said. Well, I want the ones that you can stand 2 feet
just
away,
kinda-
so you don't have to keep changing the point of contact.
Ah, the $60 ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
You're buying medical equipment, you don't want to skimp.
Sure.
So put that on the shopping list.
Well, I did
Okay.
for Mark, and
Okay.
it's somebody else is paying for it, so it's not something.
So are we pretty well clear in terms of what we want to do for opening up the meeting hall? It sounded
I
like
think
we
so.
were.
I think so.
Okay, and so we could easily move on to the next part of the agenda, which had to do with opening up the town offices. And one of the concerns I had there, and I sent something to the board, and I believe I sent something to John regarding starting to look at what parts of that building will basically be, and for want of anything else, I use the hazmat terms of warm and cold areas. A cool or cold area being an area that pretty much is off limits except for that individual who was there. And so you can assume that there was minimal contamination in those areas. And then warm areas, very similar to like what we might have in the hallways or access points, where people would have come from the outside and had the slight potential of having brought something with them. And so you try to maintain your areas that are your cold areas as being somewhat isolated from any contact, a general contact. And then these other areas where traffic occurs to be recognized as an area where you have to use some caution. And this brought another concern, and I think John addressed it at the selectmen's meeting 2 weeks ago when we just got on board, and that had to do with the central Xerox office. And if we were to use that as the entryway for all of the offices on the left and offices on the right, and not utilize the doorways that go into those offices from the hallway, you could limit, in a sense, the amount of egress and access points into those offices.
Well, I would think temporarily we would try to exclude people from coming into the office area to the maximum extent we could. That we keep
Absolutely.
the public in the lobby area.
Right.
I also think we need to put some walls up as far as separating staff and providing smaller secure areas that we can make sure that the chance of infection is greatly reduced.
You had talked
For
about
example,
maybe having Chris come in. Has that been looked at?
Yeah, I haven't had anyone in here yet to look at the
Okay.
feasibility.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking conceptually about how to do it. And one thing I was trying to determine is what our staffing level is going to be. And I don't know if you realize, but last night the board did restore a position that had been cut last summer. So we're going to have one more AA in here. So that's going to affect how we set up the office space. And now that we've got the staffing level set, it's time to then start thinking about how can we best protect the staff in the spaces that we have available here.
Okay.
And I'm thinking it's going to involve putting up some walls in what's called the copy area, as well as in the next room over that currently where finance and assessing is.
Mhm.
So nothing's been decided, but we are looking at that as one of the things that may need to be done to help protect staff. But I think trying to keep people, I wished we had a room on this level that was a small conference room where people could meet with the public. Right now, I think the best way would be if you need to meet with somebody, take the material and go down to the meeting room where you've got plenty of room to spread out and to stay distant. But if we allow staff back in, do we allow 50% and alternate those 50? You know, I don't know if we go from where we are now with one a day to everybody. We may want to have an intermediate level of reintegration to the building.
Well, here again, one of the things that needs to be done is the selectmen set the rules that where in that part of the office's masks will be required and where they could be relaxed, where meetings with the publics could occur and where they would not occur. Because one of the big things is making sure that you provided provisions to keep your staff safe. And this even goes from people, town employees coming into the town hall. In other words, you have Mark and Jackie and Glenn and Chris who are out there working in the public in potential areas, then coming in to the town hall on a fairly open basis. So we need to have some way to address that as well.
Yeah, at this point, I would think the best way is for them to be like the public because they've been more exposed to the public. And you would deal with them through the window, or if you had to have a meeting, you would go down to the meeting, the hall and meet there, or even downstairs to the conference room down there.
Is there a way that we have access to the outside where we could, I mean, just thinking of Stratford or some of these other towns who just have a window that like
Drive-through?
Savannah has downstairs, they can actually, the staff can interact with people who remain outside the building.
It would require construction and some changes both inside and outside, going through an exterior wall. It's not an
There's
easy
the windows
fix.
in the hallway, but there's bushes in front of them. I don't think.
Yeah. But it's just, something in as we're looking at some of the potential changes. One of the things that Matt had mentioned was trying to use COVID funds for this. One restriction would be anything that is a permanent change to the town hall would not be acceptable. However, any temporary changes, partitions and so forth, probably would be.
What if it's only temporary for 30 years?
I know there are a number of towns trying to do that. So you can argue that with the.
I'm not
Gopher
going to
people.
go there. I want to meet the spirit of the
Can't
law.
take it down.
Yeah. So what sort of things would we need to have in place for the offices to be safe enough to bring staff back? And I certainly agree that coming into the building would be by appointment only, and we could maintain that all the way up through August.
So John, you said you had like a map in your head or something. Do you want to share that or not? It's not ready yet.
Not ready yet. I want to discuss it with staff before I share it
Okay.
more broadly, just to get feedback on it.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we've covered everything that needs to be done. How often does the boards or does the public ever need to have things copied or need access to the copier?
I think if they request something, we copy it for them and we charge
Copy it
them a
for 'em.
fee.
Right,
Okay, so the copier can stay inside the secure area.
right. The other thing that was interesting is at this point in time, so much of what we used to come to the town hall to get, whether it was records for assessment cards, records for the tax maps and so forth, are now available online.
Mhm.
So there is less and less. And so the people who are coming in are just those who are not computer savvy enough to be able to get them online. So you've cut down the numbers substantially. And that was one of
Yes.
the questions I was going to have for John or Beth, is how many service needs that the general public would have to come in to the town hall for? What are the things that they would need to get? I know building permits and stuff like that, they still would need to come in to see somebody, either the building inspector or the person handling that. But what other things would the general public need to use the town hall, get into the town hall for?
Some people who aren't technologically savvy need help with even tax maps and tax cards and
Right,
some of the
right.
things that are available online. But by and large, the ones who most need to see an individual are in general assistants and the tax and town clerk downstairs.
Right,
That's where the bulk of the traffic is. I think they've got a plan that seems to be working for them down there right now, which is appointment, one person at a time.
Yep. They have a drop off box. They've got quite a little system. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just did my registration online yesterday.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to open that one up any more than here in this building. I agree we got to do something on building, but I don't think there's a lot of pressure other than that.
Right. And I did have a conversation with David downstairs regarding welfare. And he was indicating that because he has that door where the police chief's office used to be, he can handle most of his business out in the parking lot
Yep.
without having any. I think the floor downstairs is in good shape. It's the people who are there are still continuing to work. I know that the treasurer's been coming in. welfare director's been coming in, and the town clerk's office has been functioning. So I think it's just the second floor that we've got to do some work on looking at opening that up safely.
Well, Jim and I, when we met a few weeks ago, we did measure, and everyone's desk, I mean, the desks are 6 feet apart. So everyone, I mean, in more than 6 feet apart. So their workstations are safe for them to be at. It's just, I would think probably, like Susan's desk is so close to the door opening up. So people walking by, like to get to the copy, like if Linda walks by, that would be, maybe if we put like a plexiglass petition up or something, because we can't really put a real petition because she won't be able to see the window.
Right.
What we may want to do is depending upon airflow from the cooling unit, we may want to go from the top of those room dividers to the ceiling with some kind of clear panel to reduce that possibility of transmission over but in general, most of these droplets are heavier and they fall. So it's not like they're usually propelled up and over.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that whether or not we put up walls or we create a less permeable place depends somewhat upon how we're going to handle air handling. And I mentioned earlier, that's going to be one of the issues if we made an office, for example, in the copy room. There's no air unit in there,
Mm-hmm.
heat or cooling.
Mm-hmm.
There's some concern as to whether or not we really want to put an office in there, because there are so many functions that need to be done that are such as the Xeroxing and so forth, that it may be advantageous to leave that as just an open passageway.
Well, the Xerox machine has to be in an open and accessible area.
Exactly.
Now, there are a couple of other options up here within the area where we might be able to put it to think about. And that's what we need to have that kind of discussion.
Is that a discussion that we should have with staff?
Yeah, I plan to have it with staff. I don't see that it's a COVID issue. It's a efficient workflow efficiency.
Absolutely. But if we keep the COVID on top, should this go on for another year or so, we have a way that we can bring the staff back in safely.
Oh, I think we can bring staff back in starting sooner rather than later. Not all of them at once, but to start increasing who's here, what days maybe.
Right.
That being said, I think keeping the public out or limiting them, just the fact that we don't have anywhere near as much demand helps to limit it somewhat.
I know the board's goal is to get the staff back, and then keep public like in the lobby area. And that way we're not having them come into the offices.
Yeah.
We want,
Yeah, I mean, safety of staff is number one priority.
definitely.
But second, once we come up with a way to keep staff safe, how can we help meet the needs of the public in a safe manner?
Well, retail has been successful at it, so we should be able to be successful at it.
Time will tell whether retail's been as successful as they think.
Well, like the police
Wait
department,
2 weeks.
the police department, Wendy's there. If you need to go in, you make an appointment. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean,
We may be.
it can be done. It's just
yeah,
we want
we
to
may
keep
be-
it safe.
We may be allowing people to come in for appointments, so we're sure we don't have too many in the lobby at once, but.
Yeah.
But also,
my experience has been, even before this COVID hit, the traffic dropped off dramatically once we went to online tax maps, tax cards, forms, minutes. A lot of the stuff people were coming in, they can now get online.
That's correct. But then again, we also need to be in a situation of where we are doing that health screening of everybody coming into that office during the week. So if there's a
Yep.
guest coming in, they follow the same guidelines as the staff is going to follow.
Yeah, everybody has to fill that form out every morning they come in, and you have to retain them all in a folder to
Absolutely.
demonstrate that you kept them all. Yeah, it's not, we should probably start doing that immediately. I mean, that's something we should be doing, but the thing is, right now, it's usually just one person at a time in here.
Mhm.
So we haven't done that, but I agree, if we start having more than one on a regular basis, we need to start thinking about that.
But I think that's something that the should be demanded of all of your areas where you have staff. Because as we get further along, contact tracing is going to rely on that information.
Yeah. I like the idea of the cell phone, Bluetooth tracing. I wasn't worried about loss of privacy. I don't care if people know I went to Johnson's for lunch for an ice cream or something.
So, John, what is Tamworth doing? Have they opened up their town offices?
No, just like here, unlike here, there aren't that many people to come in. So we sometimes have all three staff members that are in the selectmen's meeting room in the same place at the same time. But the town clerk is only by appointment on Thursdays. And the rest of it's all online. And the selectmen's is closed and the meeting room is shut down with it's all Zoom. So it's not unlike what's going on here, other than with a smaller staff, they haven't tried to empty the building because there aren't that many to empty. In fact, right now, there's only one regular employee in the selectmen's area. Glenn and I are both contract, so.
I know that Jim contacted the area towns and most of them have people working. Stratford, they're a little bit different. They have, nicer, cubicle offices or real offices. Everyone's working there, but most of the towns, they have like 75% working every day.
It varies depending upon the building,
Mhm.
depending upon the staff.
Yeah, he did Deerfield, Stratford, Nottingham, Epsom, just like, around our little bubble.
Yeah. No, I realize there's more pressure to have people back here. We've got a good staff that's been working well from home. I appreciate the difficulty of doing that. I know my daughter's a speech therapist in Stratford, and when they closed the school, she ended up with 2 kids home that she had to help do their homework as well as trying to do speech therapy over the computer online, and the stress of trying to help the kids that were working online. She also had a teenager, but he was supposed to be doing it on his own, and doing the work she had to do. It's not easy.
No, it's more work being home.
Yeah. That was her comment. But we do appreciate the fact they have been working from home for us, and we don't want to put anyone's health at risk, either them or their loved ones. So I think we need to have this lockdown as well as we can when they come back in to try to keep it as safe as we can.
So I'm seeing that there's a number of things that need to be done in terms of that second part, which is opening up the town offices, is the selectmen need to come up with rules such as, mask wearing in, let's say, for the sake of argument, warm areas by staff, masks for any public coming into the building, current for initially appointment by appointment only signage, and decide what are going to be the warm and cold areas of the office complex.
Mask, warm and cold areas, mask in the public, by appointment, signage, and what those warm and cold areas are. Is
Right.
that what's your list, Bob?
That's my list. And then it goes without saying the health check every morning.
Yeah, that was what I was going to emphasize. I think that That's going to be a big one that we need to
For entry,
work
yeah.
at.
And signage.
Yep, signage, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, signage we had, yeah.
Okay.
So if the board is willing to take steps on that, I see no reason why we couldn't open up the offices at some point in the near future. And then as John meets with staff and sees what their staffing needs are, changes to the architecture on the inside of the building.
Yeah, we've, one thing we need to do is to start getting staff. We got 3 vacancies right now, so we've got to get those filled.
Right. But you need a place to put them.
Well, I tell you, the most important, the one we miss the most right now is the building inspector.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because we've had other staff help out in areas where staff has been gone, but none of us feel competent doing what the building inspector did.
I nominate you, Mr. Young.
I heard tell that the selectmen end up having to do it if nobody else does. In fact, I think back when I was selectman, I ended up having to sign off on a few forms and do inspections. So, you guys need to look amongst the 4 of you and see who's able to do that.
Oh, don't look at me. I'd be like, yeah, it looks crooked, but I don't know.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that. Yeah. But thank you. But I think I'm going to pass. I still got a water district I got to run too.
Okay.
Okay, we ready to move to the 3rd one?
Yes.
Take it away.
Well, I think on the 3rd one, it's once we have number 2 in place, I think that is this is more of the selectmen's concern. I think from what I'm hearing from the board is they want people back in sooner than later. In terms of how the workforce comes in, I guess what I do is I toss that over to Beth and see what her interests are in terms of getting people back in. What time frame are we looking at?
Originally, it was this month. We wanted to have them in by the end of the month.
John, do you see that as a possibility?
Well, I might say after the 4th or something like that, but yeah, I think that's a possibility in that time frame, 2 to 3 weeks.
Because before we were talking, it was June because it was May. You know what I mean? So, but so we had talked about like doing like upping the people to do like, I think we said 75% working inside. So if you were full-time, you'd work like, maybe 4 days a week, not 5, or 3 days a week, not 5. And if you were part-time, you would do 2 versus and then 4. Like, it wasn't like saying, okay, as of tomorrow, you're all back full-time, But it's also making sure everything we have is in place to make sure they're all healthy. Like number 2 is the most important right now.
Also, there are a couple of things. The staff had talked about, coming back, but also having staggered hours. So they weren't all there in the same time. So the work was getting done and stuff was in there. And I know Susan and Lisa were talking about the idea that so much of the stuff that they are doing now, that they were doing at their desks, like typing up of minutes and so forth, can still be done at home. So the question would be, what are the things that we need them back into the town hall for?
We're just hearing so much from everyone in town that they think we need to have them back too. So it's.
Well, I think we faced the same thing back in the 80s when True was a selectman, where sometimes the town feels that people are getting something for nothing. So they want to make sure they're getting their 40 hours worth. And so that sort of perception is something that needs to be kind of addressed, and that can be done by just letting people know what is being done off hours and what is being done within the building.
Well, for example, last night, Lisa was still working at 10:30 because the
Right.
selectmen's meeting went so long.
Yeah.
And Susan was there 8, 9 o'clock. I forget now what time Susan was able to leave. And then she had to do minutes.
Yeah.
So you've got people doing work at home already.
We do. I know, like with Susan's time card, she does another paper, explaining everything that she did. She does a great job with that. But like, it's not. I'm not telling people. Well, it's not up to me to. unfortunately, people think that if you're home, you're not doing work. Now, after teaching kindergarten from home for 3 years, I know that's not true. Because I am so glad it's summer vacation right now.
So I mean, the suggestion here is that some of this is a public relations thing that needs to be looked at as well. And that might be a piece of this to as we have people doing some of these jobs at home, that's part of the 40 hours that they're working.
And some of them are working more than the 40 hours. I mean, I see the time cards. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
we,
Yep.
now that we're doing Zoom, we're having more minutes, more meetings, longer meetings, you know,
Right.
so that they still have to do their regular work.
Right.
You know, if a meeting is 6 hours long, they're still getting their regular work done plus a 6-hour meeting. So
Yeah. And oddly enough, that might be something that, you know, the press or other people who have access to the public can help us with a little bit. Because I do have that concern, is that it's not necessary for them to be back in the building to do the stuff that they're doing, particularly now that we spent all that money to allow them to work from home. It would be nice to at least be able to utilize some of that as well.
Yeah,
I'm
Susan
hoping
said she's
you're gonna
willing
say
to,
shorter meetings.
Susan's indicating on a chat that she's willing to let her timesheet be seen by others.
I
I just
just use her
noticed
because
that,
I know
yeah.
she does it every single time I see it. I mean, the
Yeah,
library, they do a great job too. They, you know, so everyone's doing a good job. I'm just saying, you know, people think, I think they perceive that if they're not there, they're not working. Unfortunately.
Like I said,
Susan-
you've got a PR situation that needs to be addressed as well.
Susan, I just noticed that notice about there used to be a wall there. Sometime I'd like to know where that wall used to be, so just let me know.
Right,
Thank you.
right in front of me. I used to sit sideways, and then it was decided by somebody that they didn't want me to have any privacy anymore.
Oh, yeah, there used to be a partition there.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I think it's
major-
also, we got a lot of complaints from public saying that it didn't look friendly and that they were waiting for people because if she was,
There was, yeah, but
or something, she might not, I don't know. It was,
I don't know. The majority, my job has always been like minutes because I have all of those boards I do. So that's probably whoever was before me, Lisa, different Lisa, you know, land use was on its own other side and we had a lot of stuff to do. And I only was tasked with doing the window a couple hours a week because that was more the municipal secretary's job.
and it was a part-time position then too. So
Yes,
yeah.
and it was a part-time position. So I would fill in when she wasn't there, whoever it was.
And I know like if someone had to go to the bathroom or go on lunch, I know Susan's always, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got really good at hearing that door open.
Yeah.
I always kept one microphone ear off and I listened.
Yeah, I think Bob's idea of restricting what doors people can come in is not a bad idea either for this office suite.
Well,
So
I mean,
we can talk about that later too.
If the door to Susan's area is just only used as an exit and not as an entryway, that would go a long way to protecting her.
And if they shut it, that was the other thing. Oh, I put a sign up too.
We could put a automatic door closer on it pretty easily.
Absolutely.
Well, you better fix that door first because it's been a mess forever.
Well, that may be part of what we
But I
need to
think
do too.
even, I mean, not just because of COVID, but maybe we shouldn't be having public go into the actual offices.
No,
that's what I said
exactly.
earlier.
You know,
Yeah, I
just-
agree.
Yeah.
In fact, if you go back and look at what the business guidance is, that is part of that. And I think we should be, even though we aren't obliged to follow any of it because we're a municipal government, the truth is what has been established for the businesses would go a long way to protecting staff.
And we have that big room. So if we just make it, you know, that people are making appointments and then they can meet them in the meeting room. That way, not just now, but you know, it keeps everyone safe, you know, health wise, just during regular flu season too. I mean, it's just,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, the precautions we're taking, I think, are going to help us reduce colds and flu come next fall. when we
Absolutely.
Normally start having the issue. And in fact, actually this spring, I've been healthier than normal, probably because, I wasn't around people who were sick.
Well, my allergies, though, I don't know about that, but
I've been sneezing for like 3 months now. It started when this COVID started. So it's been really, really hard to be out in public when I have been because everybody looks at me funny.
Well, I was in the supermarket the other day and this guy started coughing. His wife turned to me immediately. She said, "Oh, don't worry. He's not sick. He's got to smoke his cough and he won't quit."
yes, because you hear someone coughing, you're like,
So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to come up with anything on returning the workforce to town hall on this meeting. I mean, a lot of this is going to depend upon what John comes up with when he has his meeting with staff, when the selectmen end up putting stuff in place.
Well,
don't know.
I found 4 suggestions so far. One, the possibility of going to 75% time, the staggered hours, the no public in the offices, and fixing that door into the AA's office out here.
Good.
Mhm.
So anything else along that line?
no, I think
I-
after John talks to the staff and then, he thinks about his plan of, configuring the office, I think then we can talk again, but this is
I'd
a
be
good-
curious because we have Lisa, Susan, and the rec director on. If they had anything to contribute at this point, it might be helpful.
yeah. I feel bad for the recreation director. It seems like she's been hired and we've been, okay, your life's on pause. We can't play with you yet.
I think I've unmuted Lisa. Rec, you're going to have to unmute from your end. Lisa, you got anything to add?
Oh, she's not connected to a mic. Rec. Okay.
Oh, Rec's not connected to a mic.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's a two-part thing where unfortunately COVID came in at a time that we're already trying to rearrange the offices to a more permanent situation. I
Sure.
think we've done a lot of temporary changes and they're just not working. What I had suggested to John was that we look at the office as it is as a blank slate. Let's say there's no desks or anything in there. How would it work with the new positions, with, how would it work in a permanent way as opposed to just with COVID? And so I think it's a two-part thing that we're working with here. That's my recommendation, is not only to make it work for COVID, but also to make it for how it's going to work on a permanent basis.
Yeah.
So I think that also with the permanent basis situation, additions that we're making or renovations, I think that it will also work for COVID. So.
I mean, help reduce COVID susceptibility.
Yeah, I meant help us to function with what's going on with COVID and keeping us all at a distance and being able to still work together. Can I just ask a question of Bob really quick? Bob, when you
Sure.
call it a warm area, I'm not trying to be dumb, but you mean like as in a heavy area where there's a lot of traffic?
What I'm saying is, let's think of the outside world as being totally contaminated. Okay, that people outside, we can't tell. They've all been down to Boston and then been in the bars and are coming back with disease. So
That's how I
now,
feel now.
that's exactly right. So now as they come to the town hall, you're going to take a temperature screening and so forth. And so you assume that the people that you are letting in may not be sick and may not be carrying anything with them. So they have access to certain parts of the building, but they really still could be carrying something. So you consider that to be a warm area where it's not contaminated, but an area where people from the outside world have come to. And then the areas that are cold areas are those areas which the individual person is responsible for. Nobody enters it other than them. They've cleaned off their computer. They're responsible for keeping the door knobs wiped and so forth. And so in that area, they could not go maskless and work without having to wash their hands all the time. So it's just as an area that's not as clean as your personal workspace is. I'm not sure if that helps. I had
So-
sent out a memorandum a while back regarding how that worked, and I can resend that to you, Lisa, if you want.
You've sent a lot of things, doing my best I can to read.
My apologies, yeah.
No, I don't put it as a negative, just meant it's hard to keep up.
A lot of kids.
There's
Yeah,
been
let
a
me
lot
send
of-
you that specifically because that had to do, we talked about warm and cold areas and why we are looking at doing the things we're doing. In other words, the fomates and the sneezing and the coughing and what we know about how the virus is transmitted. So I'll make sure that gets out to all of the people that are on this call.
But as I remember the diagram, the
I can
the
pull that up
meeting
now.
room, the hall, the lobby, and the copy room were all warm. And then this office, Lisa, Susan, and Linda's office, and Catherine's and the assessing area were all cool. That's how I seem to remember it.
Yeah, Lisa, are you controlling the host?
I am.
No, John is.
John, if you can open up, allow me to share the screen. I've got it right here.
I just have one question, and I know
Yes,
you,
Susan.
you had talked about. So as far as when we do have a building inspector, he's going to
Yep.
be in and out. How is that going to work? Because, I mean, like
That's a good
Dale,
question.
for
That's a very good
instance,
question.
because I can't go by Rich because I never knew what job he was doing when he was doing it. But for Dale, he would come in the morning, do some paperwork, go do inspections, come back, meet with people, go out and do some more but so they're going out in the world. That's another thing that I've been concerned about.
Right, but everyone went out in the world. You came from the world coming in. So I think that part of we'll have to have a procedure or
Yeah.
protocol coming in and washing your hands right away as soon as you
Okay.
come in and,
Okay, I was just wondering how that was going to be.
Yeah.
My thought, and I want to run this by staff and have everybody have their input, is that the three AAs, Susan, Linda, and the new one would share the space on this side of the wall, on this side of the area. Lisa would go into the copy room. There'd be a new
Oh.
room built for the finance director. And then the area that is to the left as you head towards the safe would be where the building inspector would be, and that would be considered one of these warm areas.
Okay.
I don't know. I shared the screen. I don't know if you can see
I
that.
can see it.
I can see
So,
it.
Yeah.
so rec would stay where it is now, the main hall room.
Well, I may move finance in there temporarily until we can get this done, because I think strongly finance should be behind a door with a wall with a door on it. But it just depends how quick we can get walls built and how quick we get the new finance person hired.
The
But I got
office
to
is
talk to rec, obviously.
it's slowly going back to the way it was when I first started.
Well, there's some wisdom in that. Actually,
I
there's a
know,
reason why
I
it was
know.
set up that way.
I know, I totally get it, but it's just, it's kind of funny.
But I mean, that's why I want input, because why did you go away from it in the first place? That's what I'd like to know. If I'm going.
It's a
back to-
very long answer.
Well,
um,
and someday I
because it
want to hear
wasn't
that
done all
answer.
at once. It wasn't done all at once. It was little by
But-
little. So,
No, I think ideally finance would be still close to this office, the town administrator office, and the support staff would be close to us as well.
mhm.
And then the building inspector, I think eventually rec staying out there in the main hall is probably a good final.
Yeah, I have a
location
few
for that.
suggestions on setup that might work out, John, that I've kind of thought about in the last couple of days. So I'd be
Yeah,
willing
yeah.
to do a diagram and share with you, only because
Please
my
do.
main concern is that copy room area. I mean, especially during COVID with it being a warm spot. I don't know. So I have a couple of suggestions. I'd feel free to share them and diagram them out. I think it would work out
Yeah,
really well for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
I'm really interested in hearing what everybody
Absolutely.
has to say before I put a hammer to the wall. I want to make sure I've got everything planned
Like,
out the
Yeah,
way everybody wants.
and as far as COVID for this situation, just a suggestion I want to throw out there, and then Susan, this might make you feel a little better, is to put building like department out in the giant room, where if he's coming in and out, Susan, it's not as much into our area.
Right, yeah, there's a door
You know,
there.
so, I mean, I know that's just temporary. Nobody wants to just be, you know, moved into a big meeting room, but seeing that he's in and out, at least maybe he could use the large door or something where he's not coming into our area. So I don't know, that was just a suggestion, because you are right. That's going to be one of the biggest flows of traffic.
Yeah, it's just the building files. That's another thing that both land use, well, yeah,
Yeah, but
and us too. Yeah, and we pull
could
them
get
too.
it for him. Like if he needs a
Right.
file, we could pull it and, you know,
Sure.
put it in a spot in the hallway, and then he comes and grabs it. You know, I mean, yeah, it's a little inconvenience, but you know, we got to do what we got to do. And then we can easily move all the application files into that new, you know, the thing I took from the library, we can move that and put
Oh,
all
yeah.
the application files there, so people don't have to come down. You know, we can move that over to the large room. You just, again, on a temporary, those are a few ideas to kind of move them.
Everyone's been doing that online anyway, so that's
Yeah.
kind of,
You know, what would be the possibility of moving basically the code inspector, the code enforcement officer into where the rec is now, the old finance office? And that would open up the office area that is on the west side of the building for your new staff. And that could keep that whole section isolated for staff. And then that way, the building inspector would have access to the large hall for his meetings and not interact with you at all.
Yeah, that
What-
was the suggestion I had, Bob, as well.
Yeah.
Where would rec go?
Well, yeah, I have a whole configuration in my head. I don't know how people are.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
no,
doing
let's,
things, so-
let,
That's
I
what this
think-
is about.
yeah. Anything interesting? You want me to switch the host to you, Lisa, so you can show?
I didn't draw one yet. I can,
Okay.
I have it in my head is the problem.
But we
That's
also
not a
have the
problem.
whole stage area too. I mean, there's no reason why we can't use that area.
That's what
you
I
got
was
some-
thinking, Beth, for the temporary, put the building inspector up there, you know?
Yeah, as long as it's temporary, you got ADA issues there for,
Stairs,
because it
yeah.
doesn't comply. But yeah, there's lots of things to think about. So, you know, but as far as the COVID recommendations to the selectmen, I've got 3 pages here. Is there anything else to add that's going to the selectmen?
Those are my concerns, just to make sure that we have the screening,
Mhm.
the requirements for masks, and the cleaning requirements for meetings. So as long as those are all, the board takes action on that, then we can proceed further.
And I think, you know, reconfiguring, you know, where different office people are working, it's just gonna, you know, if it makes it better, if it makes it more fluid, if, you know, if it keeps them healthy, that's great. And everyone loves to rearrange their furniture in their house. So it's, you
Sure.
know, just one more thing, you know?
But it's important to have the input from the people who are there every day.
Definitely.
Because I can sit here with all of my ideas that go back to, you know, having that office in the 80s. But, you know, there were 3 selectmen and we all sat in what's now the town administrator's office. And so things were very different back then.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't plan to do anything without trying to get buy-in from all the stakeholders.
Good.
So
Excellent.
I think the thing we take
Nice
to
use
the
of words.
board, the thing we take to the board are the COVID recommendations we had coming up here. And we need to, I'll try to set up a staff meeting next Tuesday or Wednesday by Zoom so we can have a discussion on this. Maybe Wednesday after the selectmen have met, but I'll let you know, and then we can have a more thorough discussion.
Good. I mean, if at all possible, I'd like to sit in on that, not to kibitz, but
Yep,
more to just watch.
Yeah, we'll set it up through Zoom.
Good.
I think those who want to be here for staff, that might be a good time to be here, and we'll, you know, we'll wear masks and
Yeah.
and everything. But
John, if I just.
sometimes easier to. Go ahead, Lisa.
I just want to interject, if you don't mind. I wanted to say thank you to Bob. I feel like you've had some very valuable input. I know I really appreciated everything that you've been doing, and just in this meeting alone, I really feel like you've said a lot that's very helpful. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Aw.
Not that
I
it's
agree.
John and Matt. I'm sorry, I didn't feel like that. I wanted to tell Bob I've been listening and I really thought that he had a lot of input, so it was really nice.
In his nightly emails.
Bob, you know what? I don't read everything you send me.
I'm thinking of throwing something in there just to see who actually reads it.
I read some of it. I mean, you know, I look at it.
By all
because-
means, the sit rep that's coming out tonight is going to have a lot of information on it. So I would recommend that at least take a look at that, because the AG is talking about a number of changes, particularly as we've gone to the changes in this safer at home. So, and I'll make a little comment on top as to what you should be paying attention to. Try to screen it.
Great. I appreciate that.
Definitely. Thank you.
Good.
Well, I'm going to close the meeting if everyone is all set.
I am
Anyone have
fine.
anything else to add? I'll try to get the minutes out later today, and just feel free to comment and let me know where I missed something.
Great.
Fine.
Susan,
Thank
thanks
you.
for checking on the end of the meeting last night. I didn't remember they sealed the minutes, so it's a good thing you could check and see that they did.
Yeah, I could have sworn I heard that, but there's so many meetings, I can't remember which one is which.
Oh, I thought you looked it up.
Oh, I did. I had to listen to
Yeah.
it again to make sure I got it right. 'Cause I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was so good. She listened to it again.
yeah.
I wanted to make sure of what I heard. Usually at that point in the meeting when I'm doing the minutes, I'm a little bit,
Yeah.
worn out.
So
Well-
did anybody else have trouble getting into the meeting last night? And or it may have just been my iPad, but I mean, I tried a number of times to go onto YouTube and couldn't get at it.
Catherine did too, but I think it was because we went into a non-public fairly quickly and came out, you had to do a different way. You had to
Should we explain why it was your voice saying, the 91A and then it just spin?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Normally you don't go into non-public until the very end, and most people don't hang around for coming out of non-public, so it's not an issue. But doing the non-public at the beginning, it created that situation. You had to start a new
Okay.
YouTube live video when you came out of non-public. So
All right. Well,
that's what happened.
I'll read the minutes. So wait for Susan to have them published.
It was a good meeting. I
Was.
thought.
To let them.
All right, I'm done.
Yep. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Have a good
Well,
day.
Nice talking with you.
See you
All of
later.
you have a good
Bye.
evening.
Take
Bye.
care.
I wanted to walk you through what you have to do. Never mind, he closed it out.
We're all done.